It's your Thursday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Glad to be back for another day. Hope you guys are all having a great day out there today. Excellent show. Football is back. Jim Paulsen from the Star Tribune has covered high school sports for a long time. Will help us get ready for the high school football season. Big games tonight. His dream team came out recently. His top teams in the state came out, doing a lot more statewide coverage of high school sports going forward, especially right now with high school football. Jim will help us get ready for all of that, so stick around for that. Also, Randy Johnson joins the show, covers Gopher football for the Star Tribune. Of course, he's been on several times before. He'll get us ready for the North Carolina game tonight, Gophers versus North Carolina at Huntington Bank Stadium. Could be a little bit of a stormy one. I've got my eye on the forecast. I'm going to the game tonight, so got my eye on that. So we'll talk to Randy, though, about the season ahead. We'll talk to him about how important quarterback Max Brosmer is this year, how many newcomers there are to watch, things like that. So Randy joins me in a little while as well. The Lynx just keep winning. We'll get to that in a minute. First, though, what did I miss? Twins lose again, swept by Atlanta, 1-5 now on this homestand, 3.5 games behind Cleveland in the AL Central. They're behind Kansas City now as well. Struggling right now. I don't know. There's no way else to put it. You have to hope that this is just a streak, right? They've been on some bad stretches this year. They've had some, rough runs this season. You have to hope, if you're the Twins, that this is just one of those, that they're going to pull out of it soon. That's what Rocco Baldelli is hoping. Here's what he said after the latest loss, 5-1 to Atlanta on Wednesday.
We've hit a bump, and we've been pretty streaky. We've talked about this for basically the entire season. We've seen this team come out of a lot of things this year, okay? We're not playing too good right now. We play a ton of games the way our schedule works. It's a long year. So we're going to have to wake up and come out of it. Like that's really it. Like this is definitely one of those periods of time that you don't want to go through, but you can't say you want to forget it. It's part of who we like. This is, you show who you are. Like we're going to have. We've shown that we've had some periods of time where we have not played our best, and then we've come right back from it and played some pretty damn good baseball. So it's about time we figure that out and get it done. I really don't want to watch these kinds of games anymore. No one does.
It's plausible. They have been streaky this year. Rocco's not wrong about that. He's definitely not wrong that they're not playing well right now. A lot of games that were right there, hanging in the balance. They've been in a lot of these games. They've had bullpen meltdowns, and that's the worrisome thing, right? The bullpen just doesn't seem to be up to snuff right now. If we were all worried about the starting rotation when Joe Ryan went down and they're using all these rookies, well, David Festa was great yesterday, but it doesn't matter if the bullpen can't hold a lead, doesn't matter if the offense can't produce more than one run. But the bigger question, though, is how they hold up down the stretch, and where's the cavalry? Where's the help? Because it doesn't feel like it's coming, or if it is coming, it is coming. It's just walking in very slowly. It's moseying, taking its sweet time. It's not getting here anytime soon. Brooks Lee is on a rehab assignment. He's played like 4 games with St. Paul. Get Brooks Lee up here. Where is Brooks Lee? He should be playing for the Twins right now. Byron Buxton hasn't even started a rehab assignment yet. They're going to decide sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours whether they should send him on a rehab assignment. Phil Miller was on the show last week basically saying they thought he was at the point where he could be sent out on that assignment like as soon as last weekend or activated, a week ago. Where's Byron Buxton? Where Carlos Correa? I get that he's hurt. If he's going to play, it's got to be kind of now or never. They need help. They need help right now. Doesn't feel like it's coming. Joe Ryan was transferred to the 60-day injured list the other day, so that means he is gone for the season. Trevor Richards, the only guy they got at the trade deadline, the only pitcher they acquired, the only player at all they acquired at the trade deadline, they got rid of him. So they've already subtracted the only player they added, the only bullpen help, the only pitching help, the only any kind of help they added has already been subtracted. Now they're just grasping at straws. They got Michael Tonkin back, he's been fine this year, but he's not a high-leverage reliever. He's just a guy who can pitch some innings when you need him to. Basically, you're just kind of like hoping that every single game can be a good outing by one of three rookie starters or Pablo Lopez or Bailey Ober, and then hoping that Griffin Jax is available that day and hoping that John Duran pitches well that day, and that is kind of it. That is very dicey, very thin right now. They could have used a lot more help. They don't have it right now. Now, the thing is, they're still in good shape. I get what Rocco's saying. They're still in it. They're still right there. The division's not out of reach. They've still got 3 at Kansas City, 4 at Cleveland in September. But they need to be playing a lot better than they're playing right now. And they need to hope that nobody else in the wild card race catches fire and starts to put some heat on them. That hasn't really been the case this year. There's still a few games clear of anybody else for that final wild card spot, but that is not guaranteed. That is not how it is necessarily going to finish up. They need to start playing better right now. There's no longer any margin for error with about a month left in the season for them to be messing around. And if nobody else is going to come help them, they need to start helping themselves. Lynx, meanwhile, don't seem to need much help at all. They won in Phoenix. Phoenix is a good team, probably a playoff team this season. Lynx handled them with no problem, even though Nafisa Collier had kind of a quieter night, especially compared to how hot she has been lately. There's another balanced kind of effort in winning this game. They've just been so good this season. They've been such a team, such a good, just kind of like throwback almost, and not like the super team with 3-star players. They've got Collier, who should be in the conversation for MVP, definitely in the conversation for first team all WNBA. Aside from her, they've got a lot of really good complementary players, some of them rising above maybe that kind of label or level. Kayla McBride certainly has probably earned the right to be called more than that, but it is just a team that has been really good this season. They've moved now into second place in the WNBA, moved ahead of, I think, Connecticut yesterday when Connecticut lost to Indiana and the Lynx won. So we got to start talking about this team as not just, hey, having a nice season. Got to start talking about this team as a legitimate WNBA title contender. They have kind of started this. We talked about the stretch they had last week, and they passed that with flying colors. Beat the Vegas Aces twice, beat Indiana with Caitlin Clark on a roll, and now they just had another nice road win in Phoenix. I mean, this is a team that looks like they are serious. They are ready for business right now. Doesn't mean they're going to win a championship, but it means that for the first time, legitimately for the first time, I think since the Dynasty era, this is a championship caliber team, not just a nice team that could win a playoff series. This is a championship caliber team that needs to be taken seriously, even if they are not, like we've said, one of those super teams in the WNBA. I want to talk high school football today with the Star Tribune's Jim Paulsen. High school football begins really in earnest Thursday night, Jim. It was some 0-week stuff, but not a whole lot. And now we kind of get the big kind of slate of games, and there's no better time of year, is there?
No, it's my favorite time of year, really it is. There's nothing better than high school football on a Friday or a Thursday night.
Thursday, as it were, this time around. Sometimes they split those games up. You recently compiled our dream team, and a couple wrinkles to it. The biggest one being we are now incorporating Greater Minnesota into our lists, our teams, our coverage. That's no secret. That's kind of part of our revamped mission here. How challenging is that, or how exciting is that too, to kind of like have the whole state to choose from now?
Well, I think it's both a challenge and it's exciting. It's nice to be able to recognize kids that are deserving. But one of the problems that we've always had and why we limited it to Metro in the past is it was difficult to be comprehensive across a statewide basis. Now, with the internet and with so many options out there, it's easier to get information and know about kids. And so that made it easier. I don't think I could have done it 10 years ago, that's for sure.
Well, it's easier to watch them even too. Not even if it's not live, like you can see video clips, you can watch
Exactly.
entire games a lot more easily than we ever could before.
I know that when I'm done doing that dream team, my eyes are bugging out. I've watched so much video of guys, and a lot of times the videos that you see are highlight packages. So you have to temper the fact that all these kids look great on film, and you have to make sure that you're tempering the fact that these are their best plays, the best of the best. You got to make
Right.
sure that you're seeing what they're actually capable of doing, not just what they want you to see.
Well, some immediate evidence of that kind of revamped model. We got a lot of players on the dream team from non-metro schools from Greater Minnesota. Quarterbacks are kind of the name of the game this year, right? There's a lot of really good quarterbacks. So some of them we even call, some of the best of the best, the elite. Nick Kinsey from Stillwater, Mason West from Edina. Those guys are already D1 prospects.
It's is probably the deepest quarterback pool I can remember having at the start of the season in my time covering high school football. And you mentioned the two big names in Kinsey of Stillwater, who I think has had offers from Miami, Georgia Tech, and Ole Miss for 2 years now. And
Wow.
they haven't really moved off the 5 or 6 D1 prospects he's had offers from, but I expect a lot more. He's a kid that he's one of those kids that's savvy. He's born to be a quarterback. He's got a good arm. He's got a good platform. He can throw well. He can fit the ball in the tight windows. But he's one of those guys that you don't have to teach the position to. He knows when to get rid of the ball, when not to get rid of the ball, how to step up in the pocket and move around, how to keep his eyes downfield. He just seems like a natural to me.
And then, of course, we mentioned Mason West too, kind of out of central casting. You right from Edina, hockey player too, just kind of a classic 6'6". Both these guys are juniors, by the way, so another year of them dominating high school football.
I love Mason West. Might be the nicest kid I've talked to in years. I mean, last year I talked to him in the spring about what he's doing, getting ready for football or hockey, and he wants to play both. He's hoping to get the chance to play both in college, which
Yeah,
playing one
good
is
luck with that.
playing two, I don't know.
Everybody says that, and nobody ever really does that, so that's fine.
But he was telling me a story about one thing that they did last spring, and he had some free time. He and some buddies from the football team went over to a friend's house who was a very strong team supporter
Yeah.
and a kid who had some special needs. And they brought him birthday presents and brought him a cake and just made it his special day. And I don't know that I've heard of high school kids doing that very often. And they did it on their own. And that shows me a lot about the character of a kid named Mason West. He's a kid you want to root for.
Yeah, absolutely. And beyond that, the kind of the rest of the quarterback list, a lot of those greater Minnesota quarterbacks, like Chase Thompson from Alexandria, Brady Kittleson from Blooming Prairie, Jet Feeney from Moorhead, Spencer Ackerman from Sauk Rapids Rice. These are players who would have been on our radar, but probably wouldn't have gotten a lot of attention from us in terms of a dream team in previous years.
No, you're right. And there's, and normally we would pay attention to the kids that are right here in our backyard, like Caden Harney at Maple Grove or Riley Grossman at Lakeville North. But it's nice to get the chance to recognize a Chase Thompson at Alexander, 6'8", man. I mean, he's going to just tower over everybody. He's going to be able to see what he needs to see downfield. And Brady Kittleson is one of those typical small town athletes who's just a cut above everybody else. You put him at quarterback. Because what other position would he have ever played? That's like putting your best baseball player at shortstop.
Right.
It's the same thing. He's a tremendous athlete. And he would probably be a top-notch quarterback if he played out of a team in the Metro or at Blooming Prairie.
I feel like we would have caught up to a lot of these guys if they made it to the state tournament or at least to the semifinals. And now we're hearing about them right away, which is cool.
Now, I just hope that I didn't miss anybody. That's the big worry about putting together a list like this is there going to be a kid at Floodwood or a kid at Mountain Lake that is deserving that I just completely overlooked? I actually lose sleep over that sometimes.
That's prep sports in general, though. High schools, it's next to impossible to know everything about everybody. We do our best, and you are among the best at doing it, especially with these football lists. And we got running backs, wide receivers. I mean, this seems like it's going to be a really good year for high school football.
You know what? You talk about wide receivers. It's a great year for wideouts. It really is. I mean, you've got some top-notch wide receivers and guys like Cameron Bugali, who's going to Andover kid, who's already committed to the University of Minnesota. I went a little outside of the rankings for my second wide receiver, and Hudson Amoke at the Sauk Rapids Rice. He's a big kid. He's about 6'3", about 185. A remarkable athlete, can jump out of the gym in basketball, makes great hands, great body control, makes contested catches, and runs away from defenders to get open and free. So I know that he wasn't ranked as high as some of the other wide receivers, but after watching his film, I thought this is a kid that we really need to shed some light on.
What about in general for this year? Not just all these great athletes. And maybe we can before I ask you about teams, we can talk defensive side of the ball. Are there any positions that stand out in particular, or players that stand out in particular?
There's a strong defensive line contingent this year. Howie Johnson, kid at Forest Lake, who just kind of exploded onto the scene as a freshman a couple years ago, just is a monster beast in the line, fast, strong, and is a D1 prospect, is already committed to Minnesota. Abu Tarawale at Providence Academy, who I think goes to Heritage Christian, is a kid that nobody really knows much about, but he's one of the fastest 275-pound defensive linemen I've ever seen. I've got video of him chasing down ball carriers from his spot in the middle of the line, down the sidelines, outrunning ball carriers. The Gophers have had him committed. He was committed to the Gophers. And the only problem with him is, will he be able to adapt a small town or small school football to the big school, the big stage?
Yeah. And what about teams this year? Is it the usual suspects? Like, how do we kind of suss out whether it's the top 10 just in the metro or statewide? Who are some of the teams to watch this year in football?
There isn't any one team that jumps out at you. I mean, last year I thought Chanhassen was a team, even though that was 5A, that you knew was going to be there at the end, and they were. Edina, I mean, they were in the state 6A finals last year, and they've got a lot of guys back, but they lost their all-star running back, and he was a vital cog to that team, ruining 8 in a row and getting to the Prep Bowl last year. So if they can replace him, Edina should be good again. Maple Grove is as stacked a team as there is in the Metro. The only thing I question about Maple Grove is that this is their first year with Adam Spurrell, their new head coach, coming in and filling in from Matt Lombardi, who left last winter. But Spurrell's been there for a long time. He's been an assistant coach. The transition should be easy, and that's a team that's as stacked as any. And obviously, you're going to see the typical, the same old suspects, the Lakeville Norths and Lakeville Souths, and oh yeah, there's this team called Eden Prairie. They should be good too.
Yeah, they're always good. That's I was high school editor, 10, 15 years ago now. In the 10, 15 years before I got there, the 10, 15 years after, Eden Prairie is still right there. It's amazing.
The thing about Eden Prairie is they're always one of the biggest unknowns going into a season, because you can know who their great players were last year. But one of the geniuses of Mike Grant and his coaching staff is they know how to put guys into positions where they're going to be successful, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be the position they played last year. There's one kid, Jackson Backham, I think, was a junior, who I think is going to be their quarterback this year, but you never know who's going to show up under center for Eden Prairie until they take their first game. They take the field for the first time. They've always got big guys. They've always got beef, and they're always physical. So they're going to be there at their end.
Any particular games you're looking forward to just right out of the jump here in this kind of opening week?
Well, I will be at. I'm not going to be at one of the big games, the big high-profile games. I mean, David LeVake will be covering probably the biggest game of the night, and that will be Lakeville North and Stillwater with two top-notch quarterbacks. But I will be covering the very first game for what used to be known as Minneapolis Henry and is now Minneapolis Camden, just to kind of gauge what the community's sense is of the name change, if it's made a big deal, if there's going to be a lot of people there, if there's going to be interest in the fact that Henry is now Camden. They've got a game against Richfield on Friday. So I'll be over there just to kind of see what's going on. But there's also Elk River at Chanhassen. That was a game that kicked off Chanhassen's championship game last year at Elk River. This year, Elk River, which is always good, is stacked, and they have a good chance to return the favor to Chanhassen this year on the road. So that's a game that would be nice to be at if I wasn't going to be at Camden High School, which is hard for me to say because I grew up in North
Yeah.
Minneapolis.
Yeah.
I was almost lived in the Henry district, and
Yeah.
so I want to say Henry. I always want to say Henry. I actually live closer to Henry than Minneapolis North, where I went to school, but I'm gonna have to get used to saying Minneapolis Camden.
Yeah, it's official, and I like the name. I think it'll suit them well, especially as suit the school well as time goes on. It's obviously not just football this fall. There's lots of other stuff. This is kind of a football focused show, so hopefully at some point we can have Jim Paulsen, maybe some of the other preps folks back on Daily
I always
Delivery to
liked the
talk.
Jim Paulsen character.
You always like the Jim Paulsen character.
Yeah,
You're partial to him.
Yeah.
All right, Jim. Well, appreciate it. We'll talk again soon, hopefully, and enjoy the opening of high school football.
All right. Thanks for having me on, Mike. Nice to talk to you.
Great stuff from Jim Paulsen. Watch our statewide coverage of high school sports. It's coming. It's bigger. It's better than ever. That's kind of a new thing for us. We're going bigger and better with the high school sports statewide. So watch for that, not just right now, but all season and beyond. Jim does a great job. A lot of our high school writers right there along with him. It's going to be a great season. So follow along for our coverage. Now, what a night for high school football, for football in general. You've got all these high school games. St. Thomas opens tonight against Sioux Falls. And, of course, the Gophers open tonight against North Carolina. We're going to get to that in just a second. Huge game for them. Just a game to kind of get right out of the gates here. Got to get a win if you kind of want to have a serious season. They will be tested, but all of this just kind of feels like the start of fall, even in August, as we barrel towards football season. Let's go for football time on Daily Delivery, and in the larger world, it's game day. Randy Johnson from the Star Tribune joins me to set up Gophers versus North Carolina. Randy, second year in a row these teams will play. Different circumstances, though. No Drake May for North Carolina, which is probably a good thing for the Gophers. Max Brosmer takes over at quarterback for the Gophers this season, as opposed to last year when they had the rather young Ethan Kaliakmanis playing that game. And, of course, this year's game is at Huntington Bank Stadium, not in North Carolina. I think I saw the line was like, at least the line I saw a couple days ago was like North Carolina by 1. This is basically a toss-up game, as are so many of them this year for the Gophers.
Yeah, they've probably got about 8 that'll be within a touchdown of in the line. So it's it's kind of a pivotal game right away, right out of the gate. I think we'll know a little bit more about this team. Everybody's wanting to see what Max Brosmer is all about, and how the offense runs through him. He passed quite a bit at New Hampshire. A lot of throws to the running back there. I'm not sure we'll see that as extensive here, but I think that's something that the Gophers will try to use more often than they have in the past. It's Dylan Lobby was the running back in New Hampshire, ended up being a 6th-round pick of the Raiders, led the team in receiving with about 800 yards and 7 touchdowns. So Max found a way to get it to that back quite often.
Do you get the sense that offense he was running there and throwing a lot to the running backs, is that a function of him? Like, are those all design plays, or is that a function of him having like 3 or 4 reads and processing quickly to the open receiver? And that's something that he could translate here to Minnesota, where you might not have all the time in the world all the time, and you might not always want to push the ball 15 or 20 yards down the field on every throw.
Yeah, I would say that the latter there. I would say that, yeah, he spread the ball around pretty good in New Hampshire. Just looking at the stats, the running back was the number 1 receiver. He had a wideout as the number 2, and then a tight end who had 30-some catches was number 3. So pretty diversified passing game there. I would guess the Gophers would like to see that type of variety in their passing game if they can get it going. They're a run heavy team first, but to get the run going, you can open up that passing game quite a bit.
Do we need to see it right away? I mean, you were saying this is a pretty pivotal game, and I agree, but like, is there a grace period here, or do you want to come into this game and see Max Brosmer look the part immediately, even if this is his first game?
I would say, yeah, you want to see a very polished quarterback. I know not everything is going to go great in an opener. It's there's rust to get out. There's new personnel and everything, new program, but you want to see somebody who looks like the guy who was a finalist for the FCS version of the Heisman last year, the Walter Payton Award. You want to see somebody who's got a command of the game, and I think that's one of the biggest things that the coaching staff saw in Max was how poised he is and what type of leader he is, and command of the team is going to be a big thing to look for.
There were tons of transfers this past year. The portal wide open, although they're talking about maybe eliminating the spring portal. I saw that, which would be kind of interesting, limiting to that kind of like right after the regular season window and not messing with rosters in April. But that, this year it was wide open. There was all these different entry points. Point being, I saw a list the other day. Brosmer was ranked, I think, the 39th biggest, potential at least impact transfer in all of college football. Seemed, I don't know how you rank these things, but it at least signifies that the larger college football world, and again, a lot of the players on this list were quarterbacks, especially up high because of how valuable that position is. But it does signify where, how important this is to the Gophers.
Yeah, it's interesting too because it's a quarterback going from FCS to FBS, which doesn't happen a whole lot. You'll see it in Miami this year. They have Cam Ward there he's coming from Washington State, but previously he was at Incarnate Word. Then he went to Washington State and starred there, and now he's in Miami. And then Miami also brought in the Albany quarterback, who's got 2 years left, so he'll probably be the backup there. But he's making that move from FCS to FBS. And especially at the Power 4 level, you don't see it that often.
Should they? I mean, is that? I want to say it's a concern, but it's a little bit of a risk, right? Like you just don't know how that's going to translate at this level. What are the Gophers so high on that they think he can make this leap?
I just think they were in a situation where they weren't looking for a bunch of quarterbacks to compete for the job, bringing in a bunch of transfers. They wanted to bring in the guy, and I think it probably wasn't the easiest thing to find the guy among FBS teams. They usually tend to hang on to him. With Max, you got a guy that's okay. He's been a 3-year starter. He's looking for a new challenge. I think it was one where it appears to be a fit that it fit for both very, very well right away and very early in the process.
What else do we need to see, or will we want to see from this game that kind of gives us clues to the relative strength of this Gophers team?
Healthy players. You want to see what Darius Taylor, what his situation is. He appeared to have a hamstring injury a couple weeks ago. Will he be going at full strength or partial strength, or if he going at all? Daniel Jackson, wide receiver, had missed some time in training camp. Will he be back? You want to see a healthy Cody Lindenberg at linebacker. You saw last year without him how difficult it was to try to replace him. Such an important position for the Gophers there. And even though the guys that were behind him last year got a lot more playing time, it's still not the deepest, not the deepest of groups, position groups there. So you want Cody in there as much as possible if he's healthy.
Strength of this team figures to be offensive line, maybe both lines at this point.
Yeah, I would say right now both lines. The offensive line looks pretty good. You've got Quinn Carroll playing the guard position, more natural to him. He could be a all Big Ten performer at that spot. You have Ariante Irisare, who's garnering a lot of NFL interest. He could be a first-round pick, possibly next spring. Defensive line, you're going to have a lot of rotation in there, and you have just a freakish athlete like Ja Joyner. He's poised to break out pretty good. You got another guy in there, Anthony Smith, who came on very strong last year. Danny Strigo at the other end, very steady, and productive. You'll miss Kyler Baugh in the middle a bit. He was a pretty good transfer find for the Gophers. But Devin Eastern has been coming on very well. So it's that line on both sides. But I think that's where they'll try to win a lot of games that way.
Big picture for the season, it feels important to me, not just because they went, 5-7 in the regular season. They did win the bowl game to get to 6 wins, but because we're in this kind of emerging era of college football. There's the 4 new teams in the Big Ten. NIL is, accelerating. There's going to be this new kind of financial model a year from now. Like we kind of need to see if the Gophers can compete in this era of college football. That's kind of what the season to a certain degree feels like to me. Like how can they compete against teams that seem like they could benefit even more from this era than they can?
Yeah, definitely. It's how are they rolling with the changes throughout the landscape? Yeah, it's going to get more difficult the more money gets involved, and how they are able to keep up in the money race with NIL and everything there. They did a good job, I believe, this year, a much better job than they did last year of retaining players. Their linebacker depth didn't get hit big time like it did last year. They were able to make sure they didn't lose anybody that they had planned for this year. It's in along with that. Now you have to show. First of all, you got to show an improvement from last year. People aren't happy with a 5-7
right.
regular season and going winning a quick lane bowl. I mean, they've proven that they can win that bowl game. I think that they don't need to be going to that one and putting themselves in a position where they're put in that one. So, bouncing back to more toward what they were doing the previous years. They had a couple 9-4 years there that, those left you a little bit unfulfilled because they had chances to win the Big Ten West both
right.
of those years. Now it's no Big Ten West, so getting to the Big Ten title game is going to be quite the chore. You're going to have to be one of the 2 best teams in the conference. Now, can they get there? Well, it's a big climb upward. I think the one thing that is probably that they would be looking at possibly is, okay, have another season like 2019, and maybe at that point the college football playoff expands to say 16 teams. Maybe get a shot to get in there. Like if you get 3, maybe 4 Big Ten teams into that mix. I'm not saying they can't win the Big Ten. Anything's possible, but it's going to be very difficult to do so.
Well, I feel like in their best seasons, they absolutely should be able to compete for a top 16 or even a top 12 at this point. Like top 16 doesn't feel like it should be out of their grasp, because even when you get past like the 6 or 8 teams that always seem to be right there would be those kind of extra spots for the teams that can jump up, that can have those kind of special seasons. They probably would have been in a 16-team playoff in 2019. Probably,
they'd have been right in the bubble.
Close.
Yeah. It a lot too depends, and if you put together more seasons like that, you'll earn a reputation. You'll probably get ranked a little higher over the years. Having a good pop up season. You saw it at Missouri last year. Very good season. They moved quite a ways up, and now they're considered a contender for a spot in the 12-team playoff. Ole Miss is another one who's got themselves moving in the right direction. They're a contender there. If I'm not sure if the Gophers, how long it would take for them to be a perennial team, like say in the top 15. But right now they're probably one that, okay, if you can pop up every once in a while, then you can probably keep your fan base happy.
Yeah, I think that's true. And it starts Thursday night against North Carolina. Feels like, again, it's a toss-up game, and I imagine I don't think their ultimate goal every year is to just get to a bowl game, but that's a good baseline, and winning or losing a home game against another, tops, comparable school feels like that will determine a lot at the end of the year as to whether or not they're bowl eligible or not.
Yeah, definitely. It's one game can swing it, as we saw last year. And if like they left 2 games they had in their back pocket, Northwestern and Illinois. They finish those out, then it's 7-5, and they're not in that bowl in Detroit. They're somewhere else, possibly like a Las Vegas or a Nashville.
Yeah, but you prefer Detroit. I know you do, Randy. Well,
I still remember the first time going there on arriving on Christmas night, and not many places were open. Ended up at the Greek Town Casino, where basically the smell of stale cigarettes and regret hung heavy in the air.
yes, it did. I'm sure it did. Well, hopefully no regrets for the Gophers in this game or in this season. Randy will have all of your coverage. Star Tribune, startribune.com. Randy, enjoy the season. I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Sounds good, Mike. Appreciate it.
Great stuff from Randy. And let's keep it with the Gophers as we transition to the cooler. I'm Googling right now where to buy a whole bunch of rain ponchos, thinking that tonight's game could get pretty wet, could get kind of dicey with the storms. We will see. Always have one eye on the weather. That's kind of a function of being older, being an adult, wanting to know what to expect with the weather, especially when my kids are going to be there. That's not the case tonight, but I'm just kind of in this mode where I've got to always watch and plan for what is it going to be like. Could be a stormy game, could be some weather, which would impact how things are going to go. I wouldn't imagine they're going to throw a ton if it's wet, if it's kind of windy, things like that. So a lot to watch in tonight's game, but really looking forward to it, going with a bunch of friends. And we'll see how the Gophers are this season. I think ultimately it will depend on Max Brosmer. I don't know if this tonight is a Max Brosmer game, but I am looking forward to seeing kind of what he has and whether they finally will have this balanced offensive attack, 50-50 split, run pass that I think the Vikings need to have this year too, or if it's going to be kind of reverting to, hey, we don't think we can throw the ball. We got to run the ball and take our chances and play field position. You can beat some teams like that. You are not going to be a contender unless you are able to throw the ball in college football. That will do it for me today. Should have a lot of recaps of the Gopher game on Friday's show. Thinking Friday's show might feature my good friend Dana Wessel talking about 90s kids sports movies. Maybe a little change up, a little curveball from what we usually do. That's the plan for right now. Things can change, but that is the plan for right now. So hope you stick around and enjoy that. Until then, have a great rest of your Thursday. I'm Michael Rand, back at it again tomorrow.